Welcome to the latest edition of the Reidsville Chamber of Commerce News and Views show. I'm your host, Diane Sawyer, President and CEO of the Reidsville Chamber of Commerce. Today we have with us a very special guest, Assistant City Manager Chris Phillips. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
I am excited to have you here. We were just discussing before the show. We felt like we had done it together before, but couldn't remember.
A little deja vu, but it all runs together at some point.
It does. Somebody asked me just today how long I had been here, and I was like, it was 11 years in July. So, I mean, after a while, and how long have you been with the city?
I started in 2006, so a little over 16 years.
Yeah, so after a while, you start to kind of ups and downs, and like you said, some deja vu, but then you don't know if you're just making it up.
Time seems to go so fast, too. You think, oh, it was a couple years ago, and it was 10 years ago.
Right. And we were talking about our kids, and I remember when your son was just little, and you would walk him around downtown, and so, I mean, it's been quite a while.
Yeah, it doesn't last long.
It doesn't, so. But I'm excited to have you here. We just had a really phenomenal day yesterday when we had our groundbreaking for the Sky's the Limit all-inclusive park.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
We really wanted to do that yesterday because we would like to have had a ribbon cutting and had the park open, but everybody knows with 2022 it's really difficult to get things done, and we had supply chain issues as well, but it's all going to work out. But we wanted to have the groundbreaking because two of the major sponsors, Rotary and Kiwanis, are both celebrating 100 years in Reidsville in 2022. So we wanted to do it this year to give them a little bit of a spotlight. They're the reason that the playground is going to be what it is, and really they sparked the whole thing to begin with. So they were able to come yesterday. Both of them had their presidents speak. Then the Reidsville Area Foundation, of course, was another major donor, and they were able to speak yesterday as well. And everybody got their hand on a shovel. Thank you for giving us these shovels. Nice gold shovels that I hope are going to get a lot of use here in the next few years. But turned some dirt, and it was ceremonial, but the real digging is going to start really soon now too.
I think it's another really cool Team Reidsville thing, because we've been talking about that for a while, and we just continue to celebrate about being all together on the same team in this community. And like you said, there were some really great partners that helped spark the idea. But the Reidsville Area Foundation, their board chair spoke and told a really cool story. You want to tell us about that?
She did. It was really impactful, and she said that she shared that story when they were considering the funding as well. But her daughter has a friend that's her age who has an older sister with cerebral palsy, I think she said. Yeah. So can't really access what somebody would call a normal playground. And she was hesitant to invite them to come play because she knew the older sister wouldn't be able to. And so she never invited them to the park. They got together at each other's homes, but they never went to the park with other kids. And she shared yesterday that she was talking to the mother and told her she was going to share it. And the mother said, if you had invited us, we would not have come because of that. That's not going to be a problem come hopefully March 25th, and all kids will be able to play. And kids don't care. They just want to play. And to put them all together and use the abilities they have. The neat thing about the playground, what makes it all-inclusive is there are access points, ramps, so kids that maybe can't climb can go up a ramp to get to it. The swing that Kiwanis really started this whole thing with is really phenomenal. It's a very large swing, but Lyle Milligan, the president of Kiwanis, shared yesterday, an adult wheelchair will fit on the swing. So when we first started talking about this, we didn't even think about a handicapped parent being able to play with a child who's not. So just to be able to bring that to people in Reidsville, people in Rockingham County really. And the other piece of it is the surface that it's on. This pour in place rubber matting just makes a huge difference for kids that have different abilities. To not have the mulch surface, the hard surface in some playgrounds, that they've got this rubber matting that is going to make it very unique.
I told somebody yesterday, there were a group of us that were just chatting afterwards. I think that from a chamber perspective and a visitor center perspective, it sets a tone for our community. And you think about the partners that were involved in it, that for economic development, for tourism, and we think about that we want people to be included.
Right.
And when companies are looking here and they're bringing their workforce, how does that look to them for quality of life?
And that's what Team Reidsville is really about, is those quality of life type things, and people come together and solve a problem. And Reidsville's had success with that in the past, like the free clinic and the scat bus. There's things that we have in the city of our size that a lot of cities our size don't have. And the mayor, I thought, said it really well yesterday at the groundbreaking, that you want to know, if you don't understand what Team Reidsville, the concept is, this is it. All these people with similar ideas getting together and making something that everybody can be proud of. And it is really a game changer in a lot of ways.
It is, and you think about, just to further the Kiwanis and the swing, and then look at how this idea grew, and how the Rotary immediately said, yes, we're in. And they didn't look at it and go, oh, we don't want to work with the Kiwanis because we're a different civic group. Like, they were all on board together.
It just made such good sense, and Reidsville area jumped right on it as well. It's funny, so we're researching for Sesquicentennial information, and there's a lot of newspapers online that a lot of access, but Rotary started in Reidsville 100 years ago, 1922. One of the first articles I saw about Rotary was them working on a playground for children. So 100 years later, the same mission, and things have come a long ways. It's going to be a really, really different playground. So those two organizations are 100 years old. The chamber, 1914, right?
Yep, that's right.
So you predated them about 8 years. Probably three of the longest continual organizations here as we celebrate 150 years.
That's right.
Looking at 101 for them and 109 for you next year. I don't know if we have any actual businesses that
we
old.
have a couple. So when we celebrated in 2014 our 100 year, and we did a publication, there were a couple that were right at 90 at that point, and a couple that were close to 100, and a couple who were over 100. And we just had a coffee at Wilkerson Funeral where they told us that they were over 100 years old. So there's a couple.
I think they started in 1909.
Yep, that's right.
And family-owned funeral home, 13 years. I'm trying to do quick math. I'm a finance director and accountant, but sometimes I still get tripped up on the math. But yeah, I'm sure that's one thing with our Sesquicentennial coming up. The city government celebrating 150 years. Obviously, there was a Reidsville on the map before it became incorporated, but we do want involvement from lots of folks, and your chamber members are going to be part of that. The city's 150 years old. The funeral home's 113. The chamber's going to be 109. How old are the rest of the members? So we want to try to compile that information and present it. It's really interesting. We look at what Reidsville did in 1973 when the city turned 100, and they did a great job. I've got some publications they did and some trinkets they put out. There's a decanter that a lot of people have from 1973, and but 50 years ago, there's no internet, there's no research capabilities like we have now. And I think we're going to be able to find some information that maybe the 100th anniversary was lost, that we now, 50 years later, are able to pull it together. So it's going to be really neat. A lot of neat stuff next year. I
am blown away. I feel like we're going to be talking about it every day of the whole next year, because and more than the year, because we've been talking about it all this year, getting prepared for it. And yeah, I do think they mentioned collecting that info, so I probably need to get with Angela, and we're going to do a survey, I think, so we can ask the member businesses how old they are, and it would be great info for us to have. That's part of what we're doing in our directory. Next year is just celebrating. We've got several businesses that are celebrating like 25 years, and same person owned and operated and running, was this huge.
25 years is a long time to run a business. think about how many businesses we've seen come and go. I think 5 years in business is a huge milestone you ought to celebrate.
We have one celebrating 10 years that we're going to highlight, and it's a dog groomer. I mean, that's a long time for a business like that, I feel like. So we've got several businesses that we're celebrating their anniversaries, and I just think that in general, the Sesquicentennial is just a cool, well, first of all, the name, right? Like, how many people are going to be able to say it? Like,
well,
that's just been so
people
funny.
watching this will think, man, we've been saying it. I practiced it a lot. Probably 3 years ago, my son would have been 8. I taught him how to say it. And but yeah, you kind of break it down, Sesquicentennial. Sesquicentennial. It sounds impressive, but once you get it, you get it.
Yeah, I had to, I Googled it, and I let Google Voice teach me how to say it over and over again so that I would not find myself in a predicament not being able to say it when somebody was talking about it. But yeah, I mean, it is an impressive word. It's an impressive milestone. I think that there's some really cool things planned. Let's talk a little bit about, I know the March ribbon cutting for the park,
Right.
and there's a lot of other ribbon cuttings and projects being unveiled. So
the funny thing is, it's kind of coincidental that 2023 is going to end up being the year for a lot of these projects, just with American Rescue Plan funding that came through and the time frames to spend some of that money, and just some other projects are already in the works. And then we start getting into the planning phase and actually into the construction phase. And then the final date's 2023, which is the year we wanted to celebrate. So we're going to be looking a lot at the history and interesting facts from the past and have time to celebrate what's going on right now. But a lot of these things are really going to be for the future. So the all-inclusive park we talked about. There's a splash pad.
I was going to say, so let's streamline. We were talking Parks and Rec. Let's talk splash pad. Tell us about the location, what that looks like, all the cool stuff.
So the splash pad's going to be what we call Lower JC. So that's down where the dog park and basketball courts and the greenway starts. The greenway that goes through JC Park and across to the high school. That's one of the hits for the greenways there. The other one's at the high school. So that, and we have a little Veterans Memorial down there. That little park, a lot of people remember, used to be a swimming pool. So it's coming almost full circle with a splash pad. So it's going to be right there, across the street from Farmer's Table. And council wanted it to be a big splash pad. You think splash pad and you go to one and kids have a lot of fun. You give them a garden hose, they're going to have fun with water.
Right.
But this one's going to be really nice. It's going to have 2 large water features and a lot of small ones. So I think people are really going to enjoy it.
I was impressed by the unveiling video where they showed the council.
Yeah.
I was like, holy cow.
If it's as exciting as the video makes it look, it's going to be great. Hope to have it open. Originally, we really wanted, Memorial Day. That's traditional. Open the pool Memorial Day, close it Labor Day. Right now, we're thinking that date's a little tentative, that we may have to push it back a little, but it's going to be open. It will be open sometime during the summer.
It's such a cool thing. And I think one of the features that, again, council wanted, there's not going to be a charge, right?
It is going to be free. No charge. Come use the splash pad. I think it could hold, the capacity from the size is like 200.
It's insane. It's huge. I mean, I've been to 2 locally, one in the county and one outside of the county. And I mean, it's going to be massive compared to those.
I think it is,
based on what I've learned.
Yeah, we're playing catch up because some other communities have a splash pad. So we're going to build a bigger one. Then I have to play catch up to build a big one. So it's always a competition in some ways. But
and understand that it's free. Like, there's never going to be a collection. They're not going to be checking to see if you're a city resident or you're not. It's just going to be free.
It's free. We're working out some of the details. It may be available to rent sort of after hours.
I think that would be cool.
So people may want to do parties, private parties there, and may actually be a little bit of a concession area too.
I'd love to see a chamber event there. Like, do a chamber night at the splash pad or a family night. Because, we've talked about, we've done the ice cream social. And I'd love to see us do something like at the lake or do something at the splash pad. I just think there would be People can come out with their families. Those tend to be really well attended events.
We're thinking get council members down there and see how wet they can get.
Yeah, let's do it. We could maybe we could get some donations going for that. Have a bucket and see who we can squirt, and maybe the RDC and the chamber could raise some money if we could fire the hoses at the.
Got the wheels turning now.
So yeah, maybe some fun stuff. Well, we've talked about that on the show, Summer and I, and we've talked about some of the things, but it feels like as it gets closer, it's just so much more real. And
yeah, it's coming. I can't believe that this year's so close to the end. But the very first thing we're going to do is the dedication of the Sesquicentennial clock tower, and that's going to be down across from the fire station on the corner of Williams and Scales, and with the 9/11 memorial, and then the clock tower. It's going to be like a gateway to downtown. And that's been part of the planning for really decades, to have something right there. Yep. So that's going to be a nice addition. And that event's the first Saturday in January, so January 7th. And hopefully it's not frigid. If it's too cold, we'll move over to the fire station. But it's going to be a small event to dedicate that clock and kick off the whole Sesquicentennial. We're going to invite every living elected official, former elected official, see if we can get them all there in one big group. We've lost 2 recently, and former Mayor Pro Tem John Gentry was really excited about the Sesquicentennial. He was a student of history, so we hate that we lost him right before the year started, but we're going to try to celebrate a lot of different things.
It's funny, we are like on the same path. I was just going to say 2022 has brought a lot of loss. Like I was thinking the other day, celebrity loss, right? Mm-hmm. Just like older musicians and actors and all kinds of things. But locally, we have lost a bunch of people that are pillars of our community and passed away, elected officials and chamber leaders and people who volunteered. And I was just thinking along those lines, and I thought, man, how many of them are smiling on the really cool things that all of them helped contribute to along the way.
And that's one reason we're making a big deal and making it a whole year long for our 150th birthdays, because we know a lot of it is oral history and things that are passed down. And if folks are out there if you have anything you think is interesting, trust me, other people will think it's interesting. If it's a story, send it to us. A photograph, send it to us. Even if it's an artifact of some kind, we'd love to have it. We don't promise we're going to use everything, but I guarantee you, if you think it's interesting, we will too. And so we want to try to capture some of that, because, if you think about these huge blocks of time, I wasn't here for the 100th anniversary. I was a year old. I'm here for this one, and we're going to celebrate it. I doubt I'm going to be here for the 200th. So this 150 birthday is kind of our birthday.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe there's going to be a time capsule too.
We're going to finish it off with a time capsule. So December 22nd is actually the charter date. That's when the General Assembly, December 22nd, 1873, approved our charter as a municipality, a town then, and now of course a city. So on December 22nd, the official 150, we're going to plan to bury a time capsule. And if anybody knows of something they want to be in there, we'd be glad to put it in. We'll probably set at least 25 years, maybe 50 years before we open it. But we're going to drop some stuff in there, and maybe somebody 50 years from now will care enough to dig in there and see what it was.
Yeah.
We might put something really good in there.
Well, I just think about, I'm not even, I'm not near 50 yet. I'm a little over 40, but I think about, there's a trend right now on social media, and we'll leave it at that, where they ask kids that are, teenagers in their early 20s, what's a rotary phone, or and they're asking stuff. And I knew all the answers. It's kind of like our generation. But I just think to myself, how different, even in my lifetime, my kids look at me like I'm crazy when I'm talking about, cassette tapes or having to record my favorite song on the radio, sitting by the radio waiting for that. And they're like, you just download the song or you just stream it. Or
dial-up internet wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't. That was when I was in high school.
Nobody picking the phone. I'm on the internet. And it's crazy.
It's crazy how different stuff is. So it blows my mind to think, like this to me is just like you said. If somebody thinks it's interesting, surely we're all going to think it's interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that part. I also know there's going to be some maybe adding to annual events that are already a thing. Like let's talk about the 4th of July. I know they've got some really cool things planned for that.
So there's so many events that that already are a success. A lot of things the chamber does, a lot of things that other groups do that the city's a part of. So we're going to tag those as Sesquicentennial. So like a downtown concert that happens every year, now is a Sesquicentennial concert. We're going to talk about 1973 and have a 70s band. But the 4th of July is one. We're going to try to have an area where we have some selfie spots, maybe make it kind of like an old-fashioned 4th, maybe some little games that probably are not in style anymore, but maybe we're done,
on the lawn.
Decades ago.
Like,
on the lawn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to maybe highlight Uncle Sam a little bit since, 60, 70 years ago, Uncle Sam was a big guy. And so we want to pick on some of those themes that maybe have fallen to the wayside a little bit and see how interesting people find it.
It just makes you think about stuff like homemade ice cream and, family and gathering. And I think that's really what you guys are pulling together, this gathering of the people to celebrate, because that's kind of what the plans are all year. I mean, just gathering people to say, hey, we're thankful.
It's probably about 2 events a month. So if people want to participate, they can pick and choose. There's going to be open houses at some of our facilities that really folks don't normally go to, like the water plant. You're not going to go visit the water plant, but it's interesting to see what...
It is so interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Leadership Rockingham. One of my favorite things is to tour and learn about all of the stuff. And for the chamber perspective, I feel like our job really is to educate our businesses and our community, and so I love learning all of that. Like I know Governor Reid House is one of the ones they've talked about having more things where you can go and tour that.
And the Governor Reid House has a lot. It's been fixed up, but it's a lot of original. Most of it is still original. Right now, the shutters are getting fixed. They are the original shutters from when that house was built.
That's so crazy.
And it was actually cheaper to patch them and keep the original ones than to recreate them. But that house is really interesting, and it's getting a fresh coat of paint for 2023. It really needed it, and it's going to be really a highlight, stepping out front again for that house.
And that was before my time, but the chamber had a part in that too, because the chamber had office there for a while. And
chamber was a tenant and helped keep it going. The last 2 years have been kind of hard on it. I've seen this in houses and buildings before. It's like if you don't go in and out every day, it seems like they wear and tear more. Mm-hmm. And so the house not being used really for a couple of years of COVID, the problems were highlighted even more. So, but it's going to be really close to new as a 160-year-old house can be once we get back into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I think that the year is going to prove to be quite eventful. What would be the best ways for people to find out about things or be involved?
Right. We'll of course be promoting it. We know a lot of people use social media because we're going to do some blitz information on that, and of course you'll be pivotal in helping us do that. But a lot of people still don't use social media, and we know that. So we're going to have print a calendar that we're going to have available. We're going to put it here at the chamber, at City Hall, and some of the downtown merchants, a free calendar, and it's going to have every event on it. So, I know a lot of folks get calendars mailed to them and they don't go out and buy them. This one will be free too, but get it and use it for your appointments this year, and all the events will be on it. We're going to try to mail out a flyer to everybody that has a utility account. So at least all of our local, really Reidsville residents will have a list of the events.
That's a really great idea.
Yep. So we're going to do that. Follow us on our webpage, on Facebook, on Twitter. It'll all be out there. And there'll probably be, we're going to do a magazine, but then all during the year we're going to be dropping little tidbits and setting up at these events to have a booth. And, we may highlight a specific year at one of the events. One event that's not a tag-on, that's an original event this year, is going to be a 1923 party on the lawn at the Penthouse. So that one's coming up in May. That's going to be really, really fun.
That is going to be fun. And speaking of the Penthouse, so we've got just a few more minutes and we can talk about some other things. The Penthouse has got some exciting stuff happening. Tell us about that.
It does. There's actually going to be, in addition to the grounds at the Penthouse, a bigger meeting space. The Penthouse gets a lot of use, but they actually turn away people because it's just the venue's a little too small for some of the groups. Even some of the weddings are larger than can accommodate there. Really, there's nowhere in Rockingham County that can accommodate a big group, over 200 people. So this new facility is just going to be basically a square building that's big enough to hold that many people, and actually be large enough to have folks come in and do a small conference, and use that facility. So
I know we're really excited about it because we typically have over 200 at some of our luncheons and things, and it's not been a good fit in a lot of our other spaces. So,
well, a lot of time, part of the year here, you can do things outside, but
sure,
it can get really hot and really cold, and we want this building to also have sort of an indoor-outdoor feel to it. So we're hoping it's going to have some garage doors, and so you can use the facility and still appreciate, the nice weather we have for most of the year. So really excited about that. Again, these deadlines are killing us. We hope it's done in May for that party. If it's not, it's going to be close enough done that people can see what it is, and then it'll be done later in the year.
Awesome. Well, what other cool stuff are y'all working on, or things that we haven't talked about maybe that you want to talk about?
Probably the one that I want to mention is, a lot of people remember the Christmas in Reidsville ornaments that had different buildings on it. And it's been, golly, that had stopped before I started here. So it's been probably 20 years, but people still call and ask about them.
Yes, here too.
You can find them on eBay sometimes if you look. So we're going to do a Sesquicentennial ornament that will be the same style as those. So you could buy it and add it to your collection if you already have one, or you could just buy it just for a standalone Christmas ornament. So even though the year is 2023, we're going to have that ornament out this year. So it'll be, you'll have them here at the chamber.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have them City Hall, and some of the stores will have them. So you can buy it this year. It's sort of a teaser for the whole thing, or hopefully they'll be around next year too, so you can finish off your next 2023 Christmas shopping with a Sesquicentennial ornament.
We're really excited about it. We have just launched our postcards that we are doing in the visitor center, and
yeah, they're really neat.
I love them. He did such a great job. Mm-hmm. Dylan Moore did that, and I thought, they turned out better than I even imagined. Yeah. And so we're hoping to add to that and add some things along the way. So we might have some things up our sleeves, or might be able to commemorate after some of these events happen, and we have photographs and some of that. And then I know there's a logo for that. So maybe once some of that comes, we could have a postcard for the Sesquicentennial.
Council approved the logo some time back, so it would be available, and you'll probably start seeing it out more now that we're getting 2 months before 2023. I can't either.
And I know, we're trying to start having things like the ornament. We have Team Reidsville shirts. We've gotten some new Team Reidsville hats. I love them. They are the real soft, athletic, breathable kind.
Oh, okay.
So we're trying to stock up our store. We get asked for things like postcards and Christmas ornaments all the time. So people can come by here and check that stuff out too. And the last thing I'll say, we keep a map of the streetscape, and we get a lot of questions about that, and so we're able to talk to people and kind of keep them up to date.
That's another one that will be finished in 23. Yep. Obviously, it started several weeks ago, but that's just going to be sort of a bow on the wrapping of downtown. Once it's done, I don't think any of us will have to live through that again.
No.
They're doing the best they can to keep the interruptions down, but I think it's going to be worth it once it's done.
I can't believe it. All new streetscape, and Gateway all at the same time, all in the same year, and the pretty bow on it to tie it up.
Yep, that's the plan.
It's awesome. Well, that is all we have for today.
Okay.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, just I hope that folks will come out and participate. You know, there's going to be lots of things to do, and we love the input. We love hearing things because there's so many stories out there, and we'd like to try to capture them all. No, we can't, but we'd like to.
Well, I would just like to say, you know, in 11 years of working at the chamber, it has been such a pleasure to get to know you and get to work with you. And I guess as assistant city manager of finance and administration, a lot of times you're behind the scenes and doing the money stuff and doing the admin stuff, but you are always really well spoken. And I know that you have a personal history, the city of Reidsville, and kind of a legacy. And so I know that you really love the city, and I know that you want to carry that on, and you do such a great job of it.
Well, you know, this is my home. I'm from here. Both of my parents were city employees. My dad was a retired police officer, and my mother retired from the finance department. So I feel like I was born at City Hall sometimes. But yeah, it's a great place. The history of city government, I find interesting. And we're going to try to put it in a format that especially the numbers, that it doesn't get too dry. So we hope everybody else will find it interesting too.
Well, I always think you do a great job. Council meetings, you know, the stuff that you have to talk about, it's not always fun and not always interesting, but I feel like you put it in a perspective. And I'll never forget one of my favorite stories and meetings to go back to is when we had a meeting for the water users, and you did your presentation that wowed me not only the first time but the second time, where you explained to people why things work like they work and what the state requires and what our neighboring communities do and why it's important. And you're one of those people that behind the scenes are doing all those things that people can't see, and that infrastructure. And Reidsville's known for being visionary when it comes to building the infrastructure so that we're not falling behind. And I just appreciate that y'all do.
There's a lot of work and a lot of people that it's not always seen. Unfortunately, when it goes bad, it's more visible than when it doesn't. But when things are going smooth, it's not always seen, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But I appreciate your comments.
Well, I love being able to talk about the good stuff, because I feel like a lot of times we're, you know, reacting to things or trying to, so I'm always trying to be proactive and talking about this is why we do things like we do. So exactly. Thank you for taking the time out today and coming and talking to us, and we're looking forward to some stuff, and maybe you can come back next year and we'll have some great stuff to celebrate and talk about.
We'll do it.
All right, awesome. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for checking us out. As always, you can find us in the heart of downtown Reidsville at 140 South Scales Street, and you can find us on social media, and also you can give us a call at 336-349-8481, and we'll see you soon.